Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another Rackspace office hours. We're talking about some cloudy things today, and we've got some good guests. I'm excited to kind of discuss some of the things that have been happening in the DevOps world and with Chef specifically. So today we're going to be covering Chef, talking a little bit about the Chef community, some of the new things that are available as of late, and just what you can be doing to use Chef a little bit more and a little bit better. So in that spirit, we've got a couple of guests. We've got a frequent contributor back with us, Hart Hoover. Good to have you back, Hart. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have. Absolutely happy to have you. Always good to have your expertise on hand. We also have a guy who's been with us for the last week or two, and we hope to see more of him, Nate Guerrero, another Racker. How are you, Nate? Good deal. Glad to have Nate here. And then we've got Josh, who's here from Chef, and we go back a little ways. Glad to have him participating on this Cloud Office Hours. How are you doing today, Josh?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely glad to have you on. So Josh and Hart are both users of Chef and contributors in that community. They're building a bigger and better community, both in the general world, but also here in San Antonio. And today we wanted to kind of take a little while and talk through how Chef is being used, how people who may be new to Chef can really hone their skills, and how people who have been using Chef may do some of the new and exciting things that are now available, and in that we wanted to talk about what those things might be. So I think there's some new developments in the Chef world. Would either Hart or Josh want to broach that subject and get us started?
Go for it, Josh.
Sweet. So a handful of things that have been going on. We just integrated PowerShell DSC into Chef Client 11.16.0, so that's pretty sweet. For all the Windows users out there, we also just released Chef Client 11.16.0, as well as OS 7.4.0. There was a neat little post on doing things with VMware vCloud that went up kind of in this slew. If anyone missed it, we had like a slew of announcements a couple of days ago. And we had like more Windows news with more Microsoft Azure stuff. And then the really, really big fun thing is Chef Server 12, which was just announced as a release candidate. And I think, I don't know if we want to go into that now or wait until later.
Well, we're going to get into it. So we can get into that in a second. I really wanted to just kind of highlight all of the momentum that Chef has. And for anybody who's watching that really doesn't have any experience with automation and orchestration and some of the tools that are available in the DevOps community, Chef is one of the big players in that arena. They're one of the big tools that are available to really take the system administration work off of sysadmins, as well as to deploy environments, and more functionality and tools are being built onto it all the time. And so people who know a little bit are going to have an opportunity to bounce questions off of our panel and learn some of the new and exciting things that's going on in the Chef world. But to do that, there's a few ways I'd like to mention. One is you can just drop a question into the Q&A app on the event page, or a comment on the event itself in Google+, or on YouTube. And also, if you want to tweet at one of us, we'll be listening. So let us know what it is that you're interested and curious about, and give us some feedback during this show, or even after the fact if you're watching this in the future on YouTube. We'll be happy to hear from you then with those questions. So feel free to interact as we're going through this. But would either one of you like to give your quick elevator pitch on what is Chef, why is Chef, before we go into digging into these all of these new features and offerings?
I'll take that one. So Chef is a configuration management system. So at the basic level, it allows you to take a set of instructions and apply them in a repeatable way to servers. So rather than connecting via SSH to a server and configuring everything by hand, so let's say you're running LAMP stack website like WordPress or some such, rather than like SSHing to a server and configuring your web server, PHP and MySQL all by hand, all very slow, all very error prone, you can provide instructions to Chef via, Chef calls them recipes and cookbooks. And those instructions run on your infrastructure and configure things according to the way that we've set out. So it will automatically configure and keep them configured, all of your services and servers.
Very cool. I was in listening to different people talk about DevOps. You hear two terms thrown around occasionally, interchangeably: the orchestration and the automation. Is that something that you'd like to clarify with the world? Because I think there's some nuance there.
The difference between DevOps and automation and orchestration?
No, automation and orchestration, those two terms.
Ah, okay. So, sure. Well, I would say automation is a single server, right? You're automating a task or the configuration of one thing. Orchestration is taking those automated pieces and putting them together, right? So automation is you playing a single instrument. Orchestration is the orchestra, right? All the instruments working together, right? So that's
I see what you did there.
Yeah, you see that?
Very, very nice.
Clever that way.
Very cool.
Drew, I have a question for either Hart or Josh. Hart, you talked about the repeatability and of Chef. Is Chef going to log into your server and run commands for you on the command line, or is it going to accomplish the repeatable automation part via some other channel?
So it has Chef has its own client service that connects to a Chef server for all of its instructions. So it's not really so much logging in via command line and just running commands one after the other. It's programmatically accepting those instructions and acting on them. So slightly different. And Josh, if you want to add to anything I'm saying or correct anything I'm saying, that'd be cool too.
Nah, you're doing well.
We have the guy from Chef on, but I'm just going to answer all the Chef questions. It's cool. And Drew, you mentioned tools earlier. I think people should know that if there's something you want to do with Chef, it's very likely a tool exists that does that thing under active development. Chef is a crazy community because there is a tool for everything. It's kind of amazing, and they all have cooking themed names. So sometimes searching for them is difficult, but if you look at like the ops code repository or organization on GitHub, you can see tons of tools. It's amazing.
Yeah, I will compliment Chef on doing a very good job of their naming convention metaphor. There are other players in the field who it works for a while and then it all starts breaking down, but Chef has done a very good job sticking with their metaphor and making sense of it. So there's certainly places you can go to look and find a glossary of terms or a tool that's been created or is being created, and be a part of that. That's one of the beauties of the community that is Chef. And so look into those things. At Rackspace, we have a tool that allows you to integrate with our APIs and our tools using Knife that can really expedite your interaction with the Rackspace environment. And so if you're already a user of our products and the Chef tools, then that might be, if you're not already using it, a good place to look to kind of expedite some of the work that you are doing.
Yeah, Knife Rackspace and Kitchen Rackspace for Test Kitchen. So when you're testing your Chef code, instead of using local Vagrant machines or virtual machines, it's a good idea to test those Chef cookbooks on live Rackspace servers because it's the same environment you're going to be running in production. So why not use it to quickly test? Great tool.
Yeah, absolutely want to test drive anything you're going to be using in production as close to reality of that production environment as possible. So that's fantastic advice. I wanted to kind of loop back in anybody who's using Chef or kicking tires on Chef. Are there good places to kind of get started to maybe begin a process of leveraging Chef as a tool, or you just start kicking tires and hope you figure it out? Is there recommended practices there?
So
Yes.
just kicking tires, that'd be a horrible idea. And I think Josh can answer the question, but
Yeah.
just diving in, that's kind of crazy,
Yeah, so certainly if you learn best by just doing things, then do it, but do it with guidance, and use the Chef mailing list or the IRC channel to check your progress. There's also learnchef.com, which is fantastic, and it's a really, really stellar way to start learning Chef. The way that I tend to try to portray it to people is pick a minimum viable project to deploy using Chef. Figure out something and define what it looks like and what success is, and then check with people and say, is this reasonable, or am I expecting too much by this date? And then aim to hit the date, and that's a really kind of nice way to go about it as well. So lots of people willing to help. Definitely reach out to the community because we've got a great one.
So I know that the breadth of the product offering can be daunting for someone who's just taking their first few steps into to using Chef. Would you, in that minimum viable product or project that you mentioned, do you have recommendations on what tools to start with and which tools to ignore up front, and maybe a set of processes you can go through to adopt things more logically as you get into the nooks and crannies of what it is that Chef offers?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is I always recommend starting off with hosted Chef. Don't worry about managing a Chef server if you don't have to, and then don't use Burkshelf at first. Don't use Vagrant at first. Or maybe only use Vagrant. If you're going to test on a local machine, but better yet, use what you're comfortable with. How do you deploy right now? Great. Go install Chef on that thing and use hosted Chef to manage it and play with it and tinker with it and do the minimum recipe. Pick something that's easy to install. Install MongoDB on your thing and start the service, and make sure you can do that, and then expand that to something new. So stuff like that is a really neat way to do it, I think. And typically, you'll find tools that fit your workflow, but don't look at all of the tools and then try to decide on your workflow. Let your workflow dictate your adoption of tools instead.
I'm a big fan of starting by adding simple tasks that you know how to do via command line, adding a user, writing a file, right? Or touching a file, creating a directory, things like that. Super easy things. Start small with those things, and then start getting bigger and bigger, configuring a service, making sure it starts, etc. But you can start with something super simple.
Yeah, and something that is at least practical that you've done before and expect to need to do again is going to be a helpful piece of your workflow to automate. So that's very cool. You mentioned a couple of things in the new releases that I think a lot of people ask about when they're thinking about configuration management, and it's what about those Windows people? How do we get some of that goodness? And you mentioned PowerShell being a component that's now interactable. Is that something you're seeing a lot of people interested in? And how would that differ any from someone who's using Linux? Maybe would there be any other recommendations for someone adopting Chef for Windows early?
I don't know that there's really strong recommendations. I think that Chef started off as a Unix-minded tool, and that is good and bad. I think that like typically Unix folks are faster to adopt things and give feedback faster and things like that. I think also though, like too many people run Windows to ignore that community, right? I think that's pretty obvious, and most of those people are big businesses that are running Windows infrastructure, and to ignore that, to ignore that customer base or user base is really negligent behavior. So we set out to really take Windows and make it a first-class citizen amongst configuration management software. And I think that we've done a really good job. I'm probably a little bit biased in that, but I mean, we've got a lot of folks that are doing a lot of really good work in Windows-facing stuff. And so integrating with DSC and like using PowerShell frequently and stuff like that is something that we've been very focused on over the course of the year. And I think that effort has really started to show, particularly recently, in our newest Windows integration.
Very cool. I know there's, like you mentioned, a huge community who is excited to automate all their things now that there's integration and tools available to do so. I want to take a minute to remind everybody that we have a question and answer app as well as some comments. So as we're talking about things, if you have a direction you want the conversation to go or a question you'd like to ask, feel free to do so. But we're going to get into a little bit further a discussion around Chef 12, what's in Chef 12 now that it's open source. You can grab it, use it, integrate with it, some of the enterprise features that everyone is going to have access to. So I think that's probably best to turn over to Josh and have you talk through what you're most excited about and kind of let you go.
Awesome. Yes, I mean, I think the thing that's most exciting about it is there's only one Chef server now. Like Chef 12 is it. There's no more enterprise Chef, open source Chef differentiation. Like it's all the same. Let me preface everything by saying that Chef 12 is a release candidate. It is not a release, so please do not install it in production. But it's been really cool to see the reaction that a lot of people have had to it. So just to kind of like cover a handful of things that happened with Chef 12. Open sourced, covered that, which is rad. We finally migrated totally off of CouchDB and back to PostgreSQL, which has been nice for us. And doing so, we were able to reduce a lot of complexity in the Chef server. So we actually have a 20% reduction in package size and a 25% reduction in services that are running on the Chef server. So that's pretty sweet. Like running a lighter weight server is always nice. We improved search quite a bit. So Chef 11 was running Solar, or is running Solar 1.4. And that's like about 5 years old at this point. So we've migrated to Solar 4, which had hosted Chef for quite a while. So this is not something that we just kind of like threw in there. And that's something we're pretty excited about. And then kind of the thing that you hinted at is getting the premium features that users had and open source users kind of had to DIY. And that includes like role-based access control and stuff like that, as well as some of the really cool stuff that's going to happen is that Valve gives you a lot of the premium features, and it depends. If you're under 25 nodes, you just get them. Like, and for those that don't know Chef, like a node is it's any instance that is running a Chef client, like that has a Chef client on it. So anything that's checking into your server and saying like, hey, what should I have? And then it has the things is a node. And so if you have 25 or fewer of those, then you get dollars just because. over 25, and like there's subscription kind of things that you can do, but we'll give you a 30-day free trial of everything to try it all out. And so those include like the Chef Analytics platform, the Chef Management Console, reporting, and then like high availability and replication are both available as well. So that's all pretty nifty. And then kind of the last thing, we recently moved community cookbook management into a big interface called the Supermarket, and that is
again with your naming conventions. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, you know,
keep going.
The food world is big, so that's nice, right? Like we have a very large repertoire of direction that we can take with regard to naming convention, and so the Supermarket, you can actually run your own supermarket as well. So using Chef Identity, you can have your own internal Chef Market, or Chef Supermarket rather, which is pretty awesome, especially for folks that have security concerns, compliance needs, things like that. So that kind of covers the gambit of Chef 12. Again, release candidate, like definitely download it, play with it, use it, let us know what you think, and give us feedback. But please don't run it in production.
The enterprise reporting is huge on the open source side. Like that is so cool that Chef released that for everybody. That's really amazing because that folds into compliance and who's doing what to my environments. If you were running Chef previously, it's a bit harder to track, right? If you're not using Chef Enterprise. So now that feature is available for everyone, it's awesome. Lead to more reliability and accountability, right, on teams.
I'm sure a lot of our customers are probably going to want to know a little bit about how Rackspace can help with Chef and DevOps in general. I work on the managed operations service level, so on that side of things, we can assist you with getting the necessary packages installed on your server. But past that, it kind of falls outside of our spheres of support. But I know that we have a DevOps team. Maybe Hart or Josh, can you guys talk a little bit about what kind of support on the DevOps side Rackspace can help our customers with?
Sure. So we do offer a managed operations level of support that includes DevOps Automation, and that's the team that coincidentally I work for. So surprise, surprise. What we do is instead of using tools that have been around for a while, like SSH, to manage infrastructure, we use Chef to deploy and manage applications for customers. At least that's the configuration management portion. There's also advanced monitoring with regards to application and infrastructure monitoring that you would get from a managed infrastructure or managed operations SysOps level. But the major difference is kind of evolving fanatical support from let me log into this server, cool, let me log into that server, let me log into that server, to now running a couple of commands and being able to manage infrastructure at scale. So we're super excited to offer that to our customers. And you can learn more about that at rackspace.com/DevOps.
And even for if we have any customers watching right now that want to have that conversation, we encourage you to call in and allow somebody like myself or any one of the many account managers here at Rackspace to facilitate that conversation with the DevOps team. We could certainly get a dialogue going.
We also recently announced a DevOps advisory service offering. So let's say today you're a Rackspace customer, but you're using Puppet, or you're using SSH, or you're using something else to manage servers, but you want to take part in this DevOps offering, but you have no idea what to do or how to get started. Our advisory services team can help you transition to getting DevOps service from us on a more permanent basis. So if you're doing something that doesn't really align, but you want to move toward that, like, we can help you with that.
Yeah, I think just having access to consulting is a huge deal. If it's going to be just pointing in the direction when you come to a crossroads, or giving the more hands-on, full-on support level, both are going to be hugely valuable to someone who's trying to get more value out of automation tools. Very cool. So with the new enterprise level features that are now available for everyone, are there any specific components that are going to be production ready very soon, or are we still waiting for 12 to go full on production ready?
So a lot of the premium features are things that we already have for enterprise Chef customers, and I will have to admit some ignorance when it comes to the level of release. I don't know that everything that's running as plugins to Chef 12 is the same version as is running as plugins to Chef 11. So but I mean, that said, it doesn't really matter, I guess, right now, since if they're plugged into Chef 12 and not 11, you can't run them as a release candidate and not aid an actual release anyways. So, but everything, as soon as Chef 12 is announced as a true release, those will be ready. I don't think that our guys are going to release broken software to the world. So, I'm sure there will be edge cases and bugs, but there always are. So.
Well, very cool. I know there's a lot of compliance concerns and people who would love to be using these tools full on and are holding back a little bit for whatever reason. So it's going to be very exciting to see that grow. There's a little bit of additional discussion around RFC. Is that something that either one of you want to jump in on, or?
Sure. Yeah, I can kind of cover. So there's been a lot of. I mean, Chef is kind of at a point where we were the startup, and now we're kind of we've got to wear our big boy pants. And so there was some drift between the company and the community for a little bit, and we've tried to move that back. And I think that Adam has done a really good job working with a lot of the folks in the community, Adam and Nathan both. And so if you go to the Chef Hacking IRC channel, which is chef-hacking, then on, I think it's every other Thursday, starting at 9 a.m. Pacific, we have community meetings in IRC, and then that's kind of all been focused back into community-driven development in a lot of Chef. So I don't know if that's exactly what you were looking for, but that's what I got.
No, I appreciate it. Very cool. Well, I know that you and Hart have both been working on developing a community here in San Antonio around Chef and DevOps, and kind of wanted to get a bit of a story on how that came about. I know there are a lot of listeners who want to be more involved in the community and in a place where they can learn and bounce ideas off of each other, and maybe it would be helpful to hear from you guys what you did to create that.
Sure. So like all great things, it came from a feeling of jealousy and coveting some other groups. So basically, Austin has a fantastic DevOps group, but Austin is not in San Antonio, and I have kids, so it ain't happening. Hey, honey, I'm gonna go to Austin tonight, for a couple hours. I'll be back, at midnight. That's not gonna work. So I wanted that level of community in San Antonio. San Antonio is growing as a tech city. With Rackspace, who employs thousands of people locally. But it's not just Rackspace. It's all the startups happening at Geekdom, which is a co-working space here. There's companies that aren't necessarily technical, but have technical people. For example, USAA, tons of security people there, is in San Antonio. There's the Express News, which is our paper here. They have technical people running their web operations for the news organization. There's different companies. There's research companies. Microsoft is here. There's lots of government agencies here, being Military City, USA. So there's a lot of interesting technical people in San Antonio that haven't really come together as much as in other technical cities. So I thought that I would kick off a group with Chef because I have a good feeling about Chef. I know it well. And I also have a partner in crime, Josh, who lives in San Antonio, who works for Chef. So at least some good guidance on starting a group. So we started, it was the San Antonio Chef Users Group. Started there and had a couple of meetups over a few months, but quickly found that a lot of organizations around San Antonio weren't just Chef specific, but super excited that technical communities were happening. So we expanded the Chef user group to just be San Antonio DevOps, like covering any and all tools, which would be Puppet, Docker, Chef, etc., as well as DevOps culture between teams. So tools and culture, CAMs, right? Culture, automation, measurement, sharing. So all those things, we wanted to promote those in San Antonio as a group.
Just out of curiosity, you guys didn't have anybody show up hoping to share cooking tips and recipes, did you?
No, but I did post the group to the San Antonio subreddit, like just to promote it, and someone was like, "Oh, I thought this was cooking." Oh, it's not cooking. So yes, that kind of did happen, but at least they didn't come to the group. We meet at Geekdom, the co-working space here in San Antonio, so you'd probably figure it out that we weren't like in some industrial kitchen or something. Although we do have pizza and beer at the meetings.
We have really good pizza and beer too.
Yes, that's true.
It's a humble brag because I'm the beer picker, but.
And when is the next meeting?
The next meeting is actually on Chef specifically. So once a month we meet at Geekdom, and we're starting to expand that from once a month to more than once a month. So the next actual meetup is Wednesday at a local coffee shop, literally called Local Coffee. Yeah, and it's Wednesday morning at 8 a.m., bright and early. So we're going to talk about technology, Chef, and over our delicious pour-over coffee.
So this one's not going to have pizza or beer.
No, it'll have coffee, but
that's good.
That's okay. It's also 8 a.m.
It's just
like on a weekday.
Yeah.
And
basically all right.
And we do have the third essential ingredient for healthy human activity in coffee.
Cooking. Yeah.
One cannot survive on beer and pizza alone.
But close.
Now, guys, would you say with the this user group that you have, somebody just starting to get into Chef, would they be totally lost there, or do you think they could pick up on the basics of it just by listening to you guys discuss whatever you discuss?
So one of the goals is to not have that happen, where someone shows up and are totally lost and are like, well, that was cool, I guess, bye. Like, we want to make it acceptable for any level of user to come and learn from each other, right? Because in all groups, there's going to be experts and there's going to be beginners and there's going to be people who know a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but aren't necessarily experts in any one area. So everybody learning from each other is like the main goal, right? Because if you don't accomplish that, the people that don't know anything are going to be put off by it, and the people that know everything it's going to be kind of an echo chamber, right? And that's no fun. So hopefully it's a good mix, and it has been in the past. It has been a good mix of people trying it out, picking it up, learning new things. So,
do you find
I think another thing?
Go ahead, Josh.
So I think just like one other thing to add to that, to what Hart was saying, is just like DevOps really is like, it's a people movement enabled by technology. It's not a and I think that the group has a pretty solid kind of identity in that. Like, it's much more people oriented. We like hang out beforehand. We don't just dive into topics. And and there's a lot of like relationship building that goes on too. And so like the people that don't know Chef very well or don't know, like Ansible, Puppet, Vagrant, like anything Docker like that, like they have people there that want to help, which is pretty awesome. And I think that's something that like, like I think everyone here being from San Antonio, to my knowledge, can probably agree. Like, I think San Antonio has a pretty awesome community. Like, go Spurs, go! I think like we've got a bunch of people that really love just like helping each other out, and that's something that I think I've seen make its way into the DevOps meetup as well, which has been awesome.
Yeah, that's a really encouraging thing, and I think an aspect that people are really looking for when they're looking for a community to hone their craft or to learn from what it is that those experts know, and walking into a place where it's all deep dive technical from the get-go, and no one's having a conversation. It's all being dictated out to the group can be intimidating. And so I applaud the work you guys have done to make an open community where people could come in and would really impress on anybody trying to build a community of other individuals who have the same DevOps mindset, to keep that in mind and not just have a lecture series, but also build a community around what it is y'all are trying to learn, because a lot of times you'll lose some of those people who could have been major contributors and just expanded the conversation.
Yeah. What really excites me is that every meetup has been bigger than the last one, and it's has it's try and track both Racker attendance, obviously, because we're a huge technology presence and I'm a Racker, so I promote it around me, right? So we track like Racker attendance and then non-Racker attendance. So that non-Racker has gotten bigger and bigger, like makes me super happy. Because otherwise, I don't want it to be a Rackspace echo chamber either. Otherwise, we could just have it here at work. Like I want it to be out in the community at large, and Rackspace has definitely supported that effort.
I think another thing that's really cool is like we've seen a lot of people that have said like, how did you find it, like Google, which is something that we weren't hearing nearly as much of when it was the Chef group, right? Like I think a lot of people in San Antonio, a lot of the people that work in technology at non-technology companies, they need a community in that, because like some of these places of business aren't that big. So you don't have a bunch of people around you that you can bounce ideas off of that I think we all probably take for granted every day. And so they got searching for it, and it's just kind of awesome to find like that people are Googling and finding a community that they can plug into to help them kind of get to where they want to be.
Yeah, I think there's probably a few people who ended up at chef class and were breaking down chickens and creating stock and things along those lines, as opposed to what they're potentially hoping for. Well, it's really cool to see that community grow. Do either of you have like a specific story that validated like this is the right direction to go? This is helping people. I'm learning from it as well.
At our last coffee and chef meetup, which was last month, this person and I were walking out back to our cars and such, and he said, "Man, this is awesome. I will definitely be back to the next one." And also said, like, I've gotten more done before 9 a.m. than like just in thought process and thinking things out than I would have normally all day. So that was pretty cool to hear. And it's not just Josh and I talking the whole time. Like we just kind of kick it off and then step back, let people do things, and talk it out. So it's super cool that that's happening.
Hey Hart, for those for people that maybe want to check out this hangout, not this one right here, but your chef hangout, are you and Josh at mostly all of them, or what should they look for when they go to these places?
So I have I have my laptop with me, and I just put the San Antonio DevOps logo on it and just have it out so people can kind of find us that way.
Cool.
At Geekdom, though, we meet in a specific room, and there's a sign on the door and stuff. So
Most people would look for bearded guys, but you and Josh are just striking out there. What's up with that?
Yeah,
Well,
I need to do the Alan Bush mustache. I know he's not here this time, but I need to get that going.
Yeah, so I had like a 1.5 year old beard that was like massive. It was like down to here, and I took it off like right before ChefConf this last year, and then I was sporting like a very studly Tom Selleck style mustache for quite some time, but I just kind of it was time to be naked in front of the world for a little while, but I'm sure that people will be able to look for beards in the not too distant future.
A lot of our
Might have
members are
something to do.
bearded, right? So
It's also summer in San Antonio, so we don't blame you for a minute.
It is summer in San Antonio.
Well, while we're talking about the meetings and the meetup and all of the work that you're doing to build this community, we've got a question from Tyler about your favorite pizza topping, just so anybody who's interested in showing up can get a little bit of a heads up on what to expect.
we actually have a variety of pizza, thanks to Geekdom, who not only gives us a meeting space, but also provides the pizza, which is super cool of them. So they actually provide like pepperoni, sausage, and veggie, or supreme, or whatever, right?
But what's your favorite?
My favorite, though, is pepperoni.
Classic.
Word agreement, hands down.
Well done. Very good. Well, we have one more question in the question and answer app. Anybody who's been watching, feel free to throw additional questions there in the event page. But the question is, couldn't I just deploy a cookbook and roll with that? Why would I want to build my own?
So with regards to deploying your own cookbook, you could do that. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. Lots of our customers have like a managed infrastructure service level and do it all themselves, and that is totally cool. However, not everybody has that level of expertise. So, and even some of our customers on the DevOps side really do have that expertise, but they still want a team of experts that they can rely on for consulting. Am I doing this right? Or technical advice, architecture advice, things like that. A more managed experience. So if you're doing it yourself and deploy something and you've done it incorrectly, you won't know until it's too late. Whereas if you're running all that through a managed service like that we offer, we can catch that. We do code reviews with all of our customers, making sure that what they're putting into their chef is actually going to work, and we test it and make sure it works before deploying it. So there's that level of service that you get with that offering. Someone to lean on, right? It's managed service. It's the same as if you were saying, well, I could just run my own WordPress website. What do I need Rackspace for, right? It's just people that want that extra level of service and expertise with their application. That's what it comes down to.
Hey, I have a quick question. When we traditionally think about Chef, most people think about deploying infrastructure and automation from scratch. Is Chef the right tool, or is DevOps, I guess in general, the right tool for those users that may want to repeat and automate tasks that they have to do on a regular basis on existing architecture? For example, maybe somebody needs to create new domains and install WordPress on a regular basis and create new MySQL databases. Will Chef aid in that on existing architecture?
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly use Chef on existing architecture. I think that it's much cleaner to go from a tabula rasa, right? Like, and ultimately, I think that kind of the DevOps best practice is like when you don't need something anymore, kill it and just create something new. Like that's something that cloud technology has enabled people to do, and is pretty awesome. But we have plenty. I mean, we have plenty of very large enterprise customers that are like, hell no, I'm not going to blow up all my stuff. Like, please tell me how to do this in a sane way for my business model. and we absolutely have the ability to do that as well. So you can definitely manage things. Like it's not a good idea to you'll have to tell Chef to remove stuff. So a lot of people think like if I tell Chef to do things and then I take that thing out, like it will destroy whatever the service that I said like to install and start from that box, and it won't. Like it's still there unless you write kind of like an anti-recipe. So like from that standpoint, like I would say best absolutely start from a clean slate as much as you possibly can. But if you have a repeatable task that needs to happen over and over and over again, automate it. Like certainly don't do that manually every time. And there are plenty of tools. Like Chef's not the only one, but it's obviously the one that I prefer people to use.
Very cool, thank you. There's a whole community of cookbooks that are out there as well. So there's work other people have done to create tools that you can just plug and play. If you want to deploy WordPress, you can go and get a WordPress cookbook and fire that thing off. Now, there's some pros and cons of doing that, and you probably don't want to just fire off some random community cookbook as your production environment without kicking some tires first. You build it, you see how it works, you see what components are there and what aren't. Make sure it's going to fit your needs, but there are a lot of components that come about because of the community, and a lot of cookbooks that are out there that can help deploy something quickly with Chef that you don't have to build from the ground up. So that clean slate doesn't have to be, I know nothing about Chef now, and I need this whole working complex architecture in place tomorrow. With a lot of the tools that are already there, you can get to that point, but you don't have to build every last piece yourself. So there is an entire spectrum here, and you're probably going to fall somewhere on that spectrum instead of one of the far reaches. So it's always an encouragement.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that. Community cookbooks are a great learning tool, but Rackspace, the DevOps Automation Service, we actually use community cookbooks in a lot of our architectures after testing them, of course, like we talked about. But if we do find problems with the cookbook that we really like, we contribute back to it. So it kind of goes into our open cloud DNA, where we contribute back to the community whenever we can, so to improve it for everyone. So if there's a problem with the, for example, MySQL cookbook, we have Rackspace employees contributing back upstream to the MySQL cookbook so that anyone, whether or not they're a DevOps Automation customer, can take advantage of them. But we are still doing a lot of testing on our end before those cookbooks make it to a customer environment. So super thing to call out there, community cookbooks. A lot of people are tell people don't use community cookbooks, it's scary. And that's kind of true, but what they really should be saying is don't use community cookbooks without testing them. Because testing is super important. So you do need to watch out for that stuff.
So anybody playing the Cloud Office Hour drinking game, we've said testing about 1,000 times, so you'll need to take a rest, put the glass down. We'll give you a reprieve for the rest of the show. But that's definitely good reminder. It's something that we preach every week is test everything, and that will give you the numbers and the metrics and the full understanding of what to expect in production. You can't just gamble away your production environment with untested tools. Well, Josh, I know you've got things going on. Is there any parting words of wisdom you have for us before we let you go?
I don't think so. I'm not a very wise man today. I think that just like you be you. That's my advice today. You be you. Like that's all.
Sage, very sage. Thank you. All right. Well, Hart, Nate, do you guys have any closing thoughts? If not, we're going to wrap up and call this a day.
My two things, rackspace.com/DevOps, lots more information than I was able to relay via video hangout. So go check that out if you have any questions about our DevOps service. There's a big button on there that says contact somebody or have someone contact me about this thing. We'll have a Racker answer any questions you have. Also, meetup.com/San Antonio DevOps. If you're in the San Antonio area and want to join us, come on down. We have pizza and beer and coffee. We don't bite. So yeah, come check it out. And thanks for having me on.
Glad to have you.
Hart mentioned what I was going to talk about, which is just the support community in general. If you're a regular viewer of Google Hangouts at Rackspace, then your good friend Alan Bush is doing some cool things over there. So a wealth of resources online at Rackspace, so be sure to peruse it when you have some time.
Very well said. Well, thanks everybody for joining and for viewing. If you're watching this in the future, tell us how it is. And we will see you again next week. I think we're going to be talking about the Viata router and how you can use that tool in your cloud solution. So until then, follow us on social medias, and we'll see you then.